You heard the man. You can't win without beef up front. Let's get it. Ryan Coyle, Sean Brace. Of course, beef up front, all things college football. Ryan, while I was out trick or treating with my daughter last night, I saw somebody run by me with a visor on and a Old Miss sweatshirt. Was that you dressed up as Lane Kiffin?
Yeah, that was me out in Conchi last night.
That's what I thought. That's what I thought.
You haven't. Oh, there you go. All right. Let's keep it moving here. We're going to open it up. Got a lot to get to. Of course, 5 minutes, all things college football, everything podcast at foxphlgambler.com. Ryan, first of all, the first official rankings came out yesterday. Ohio State 1, Georgia 2. You got your team, FSU, in there at 4, Michigan in at 3. Anything for you as far as what we're seeing right now, or are you where I stand? Everything's going to work itself out.
Yeah, everything at the end of the day works itself out. I mean, this first one is pretty premature. I mean, we're just getting into November now, so now's really where teams really start to separate. When I look at the top 25 that came out, I think the top 12 also have somewhat of a chance to make the playoff. Some people were kind of giving me some flack for putting not having Louisville in there, but I don't think a one-loss ACC team, especially when that loss is to Pitt, you'll have a chance at getting in. Like Florida State's going to have to run the table, go perfect, and they still might need some help to get into the playoff. Like they might throw a one-loss Oregon in there or something over them. So there's still certainly a lot to be figured out, but I think there's still a legitimate 12 teams that have a fighter's chance to get in the playoff this year.
All right. So with Louisville, who are they going to be facing in their championship game?
They would be playing Florida State.
So if that's the case, if Louisville runs the table and they beat Florida State, what are we talking about then?
I still don't think they would get in because Pitt most likely is going to be like a 3-9, 4-8 team. I just can't. I don't think you can justify that. Yeah, especially with like the way the Pac-12 is. Maybe Michigan or Ohio State only finishing with like one loss. We could see if Michigan does go out and beat Penn State, we could see like last year where Ohio State found their way in after not even playing in the conference title game. So I think the only team that will go from the ACC is if Florida State finds a way to go undefeated. I just don't think they can justify putting a Louisville team that lost to a 3-9 or a 4-8 Pitt team most likely in the playoff.
All right, and plug that future Florida State. What do you own?
20 to 1. They're now up to 6 to 1, I believe.
Look at you dog. I love it. All right, let's get to the games. We got a lot to discuss, and we're going to even squeeze in a little Heisman Trophy conversation as we now have a new favorite. Let's talk about Alabama and LSU. To me, the game of the weekend. Can't wait to watch this game. I'm hoping we're going to see some fireworks. I believe we will. Had Julian Edlow on the program today from DraftKings Sportsbook, discussed on the LSU side, both cornerbacks injured for a defense that already gives up a ton, 60.5. I think that tells you a little something how the odds makers, of course, think this game's going to go on DraftKings Sportsbook. Bama, a 3-point favorite. I guess it was a little higher in the week, came down a little bit. It's been a little crazy weekend with everything going on from the NFL into Halloween. Have a kid, you'll know. But here we are now. They're 3-point favorites. I definitely lean to Alabama. I think we've seen this game 6 different ways over the last couple seasons, and then everyone takes that bait. But it's Alabama at home as 3-point favorites. Your thoughts?
Yeah, the main thing that sticks out to me in this one is LSU's offense. Like I know that they've been good, but I didn't know that they were this good. I thought Washington was still at the top. LSU's first in the country in both points per game and yards per game. 47.4 points per game and 552.9 yards per game. And doing that in the SEC, that's pretty impressive. But then it goes back to they're supposed to have all these 5-star recruits and potential first-round picks littered across that defense. They've just been absolute no-shows this year. In their last 5 games, LSU, they scored 34 or more. But then when you look at Alabama, they haven't allowed more than 21 in each of their last 5 games. So kind of an Alabama strength on the defensive side versus a very good LSU offense. I actually like this game to go under. I think Alabama is going to kind of control this one at home. And they really want to play it slow. Like I think whoever winds up winning the first half in this game, sets that tempo, sets what kind of dictate the spread or the outcome of this game, the tempo of it. I think that's going to be who finds a way to win, because if LSU gets up early, Alabama coming from behind, I doubt that they're going to be able to do that like they did against Tennessee, because I just think this LSU offense is too high powered to stay score for score with at the end of the day. But if Alabama is able to slow it down, make this like a 10-7 halftime game, a 17-13, something like that, where they're just running the ball and playing good defense, then they're going to find a way to pull away. But like you said, Alabama at home, I like them to cover that 3, and I do like the under. I think if Alabama is going to win this game, it's going to have to go under. If you think it's going to go over, I would take LSU on the road outright.
So it takes a special performance for anybody to go into Tuscaloosa and beat Bama, right? And Texas showed us that. Of course, it was their only loss in the season, but it did come at home. So can LSU get on that level on both sides? That's where I'm wondering. I think they can score points. I fully expect Alabama to score points. Edlo Julian also said that he liked the team total 31 for Alabama. Where do you stand on that one?
I still would say under. I think it's going to have to be, if you think Alabama's going to win this game, it's going to have to be like 27-23, something like that, just because this offense hasn't shown me enough throughout the year to go and score all those points. But also when you look at it historically in this rivalry, I think it's Alabama's won 8 of their last 10. The one was last year in Baton Rouge where LSU had that 2-point conversion. And then the other one was the Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson team. And that was the game that Tua got hurt in as well. So they only lost that game by 5. I mean, this has just been a rivalry that Nick Saban has dominated. So I think that Alabama finds a way to win this one and really just end LSU season on the spot.
All right. We like the plays. Let's keep it moving. Beef up front, Ryan Coyle, Sean Brace. Next game up, it's definitely the second best game on the card. Some might say we might get more offense in this game. 76.5 is our total on DraftKings Sportsbook here. Incredible. I hope it does go over. That means it's a hell of a ball game. But we already saw Washington one time in a great game. This game is going off at 7:30, taking place in Southern Cal, unlike the last time that the fireworks went off out there in the Pacific Northwest, excuse me. But Washington, 3-point favorites on the road at USC, 76.5, as I said, on DraftKings Sportsbook. Washington, though, correct me if I'm wrong, they've had a couple squeakers over the last few weeks, a couple single-digit victories. And
yeah, against both the Arizona schools, since that Washington Oregon game, they haven't really looked like the same team. It seems like that might have taken a lot out of them, but that was kind of their Super Bowl. I think that they still might be feeling some of the wounds because that was a battle. That was one of the best games of the year. But
absolutely.
I do love Washington in this game, and I do love the over. I mean, even with it being 76.5, I don't care. If it was 80.5, I still would take the over. Just
they can't make the number high enough.
Yeah, they really can. It's funny because it's the polar opposite of that Iowa Northwestern game. I don't care what it is, I'll take the under in it. I think it opened at 29.5 earlier this week, and now we have 76.5. So it's pretty wild. But just a quick note on how bad the USC defense is and really why I think that this game is going to soar over the 76.5. They've given up 28 or more points in each of their last 6 games, 34 or more in 5 of their last 6, and 40 or more in 4 of those 6 games. Just gave up 49 points to Cal. And then when you go back to last season as well with their Alex Grinch, the defensive coordinator, they gave up 38 or more in each of their last 8 games. Like, this is a team that can't stop a nosebleed. They have Michael Penix this week, 3 NFL receivers in that receiver room for Washington. I think Washington's going to win this game and win it easily. This is a USC team in a downward spiral, needed heroics once again from Caleb Williams just to beat Cal 50-49. Second time that it's came down to the stretch against Cal and Arizona. I mean, they needed 2-point conversions in overtime to avoid those losses. So this is a Washington team that I think that is in need of like a comeback type game where you said have had a few stinkers recently, but this is still a national title contending team. I think that they're going to win this one easily by double digits, and I really like the over in this game. It's one of those games, like you said, you couldn't make the total high enough. I'm going to take the over all day.
All right, so Penix is going to throw up some numbers here on Saturday again.
If they're following the trend of those numbers that I said with USC not stopping a soul, I think Washington should have an absolute field day.
All right, he's plus 280 to win the Heisman. Only a few games left in the regular season. That's going to make the difference in the voting. JJ right behind him from Michigan quarterback, of course, at plus 300 on DraftKings Sportsbook. Caleb Williams, Michael Penix Jr. At plus 280 on DraftKings Sportsbook, leading the charge. Matter of fact, I did just bump in and say his name. Where is Caleb Williams on?
He was all the way down at, I think, 80-1 at this point or something.
Get out of here. Yeah, he's 80-1 on DraftKings Sportsbook. The preseason favorite, now 80-1. Interesting.
Never had a back-to-back since 74, 75. It's been like that for a reason. So
Marvin Harrison Jr., 25-1 to open up. Some books mostly down to 20-1 at a preseason, down to 10-1. Jordan Travis, 8-1. Bo Nix, 6-1. Jaden Daniels, 4-1. Now watch out. That's the one that I want to discuss with you a little bit later, because I can see a path of him, of course, getting there. And as you pointed out, with the numbers they've thrown up, especially this weekend against Alabama. But we'll get to that in just a second. All right, next game up on the card here. Let's talk about Notre Dame and Clemson. I hear the public is all over Notre Dame, rightfully so, right? I mean, Clemson has been atrocious, 4-4 on the season. As far as this one, though, is concerned, we are looking at a noon kickoff, 3-point favorites, Irish on the road, 45 total on DraftKings Sportsbook. As I said, public all over Notre Dame. Any shot that you're looking at Dabo for a bounce back here?
Yeah, this is a game that I'm really not paying into that much attention to, just because there's so much more games at stake right now. If Notre Dame hadn't lost that game to Louisville, this would be, right there in the conversation. Or if they had beaten Ohio State, Notre Dame, this would be a huge game once again for them as they try to make the playoff. But their team sitting there dead in the water as well. Clemson, I think they're in need of a kind of a comeback game. But it seems like Dabo's getting a bit sour down there. Could he potentially bolt for a different job? Who knows? But it sounds like he's fallen out of favor there. But a quick note on Notre Dame in this one: they've covered their last 11 of their last 12 games against ACC schools. They basically have been an ACC school when it comes to football the past few years, just because of the alliance or whatever they called it during the COVID year, and then scheduling wise, they're a familiar team in this conference. And I just like we were saying, this Clemson team seems like they've rolled over and they don't want to be there anymore. I do think Notre Dame wins this one, and they should cover that 3 points.
All right, we'll keep it moving as far as that one is concerned. Again, all over the public on Clemson or on Notre Dame. And we understand that you look at how bad the defense has been for Clemson this year. I know they're tough at home, but I do like Notre Dame. You got to like Notre Dame if you're going to pick a side on that one. Probably won't touch it. Noon kickoff, moving on, as you pointed out. All right, on DraftKings Sportsbook, curious to know the number here. Let's talk a little bit about – let's go to number one overall. Georgia, of course, number two, in the recent polls that just came out. I believe last time I checked, they were 15.5-point favorites against Missouri. Now down to 15. DraftKings Sportsbook, 3:30 p.m. kick here. Game being played in Georgia. Missouri's offense has been clicking this year. They look really good. Mm-hmm. Is it possible that they could keep this close? And if they can keep it close, why not the plus 490 on the money line?
Yeah, this is one that I've told myself I will not fall for the trap this week. I've taken Florida and Kentucky to cover the spread against Georgia, both at plus 14.5. I think I got them. And as we know, both of those games were absolute steamrolling. Missouri might be the best team of that bunch, though. Brady Cook, Luther Burden, that's been one of the better quarterback receiver duos in all of college football this year. And last year, Missouri really did play this Georgia team close. They were leading, I believe it was, going into the fourth quarter. They only lost that game 26-22 at Missouri. But the last two times Missouri traveled to Georgia, they've lost 70-6. It just seems like Georgia, when they need to wake up and they know that they have some stiff competition in front of them, they wake up and find a way. So I'm not going to fall for the trap again. But as I said, I've been on the wrong side of Georgia, I believe, on 3 different bets this year. So not a team I've been able to get a good pulse on, but if I had to make a pick in this one, I would lay that 15.5. Could see them winning this game by 3 touchdowns.
All right, let's get some rapid fire going here. Get your thoughts on Penn State, 8.5-point road favorites down there to College Park, taking on the Terps. 51 is your total. You say wow, because what was the number when it opened?
10.5.
Okay.
And Maryland's coming off a terrible loss. I believe it was to Northwestern last week. But I was in the house for that Penn State game and lifeless. They looked terrible. They needed a last-minute touchdown drive, 50-yard pass actually from Drew Aller. Maybe the first. I think it was the longest completed pass that they had all season to beat a terrible Indiana team as a home 32-point favorite. And this is the ultimate look-ahead spot now. Seems like they're still recovering from that Ohio State game a few weeks ago, but this is the ultimate look-ahead spot with Michigan at home next week. So I had Maryland plus 10 on my card. That number moving down. It's not looking good for Penn State. They could be on upset alert, but Penn State has dominated at Maryland over the years. So this is a game I'm probably going to stay away from. A little bit too much unknown. I don't know what Penn State team we're getting. You also don't know what Maryland team you're getting after that deflating loss last week. I think this is more so just a kind of a let's see what Penn State brings to the table and if they're going to have a shot next week against Michigan or not.
Interesting. All right. Yeah, that's kind of the way I'm looking at it. That was an ugly game. I mean, that just was a brutal game to watch. At least, did you have a good time at Happy Valley? Was it happy for you?
First trip up. It was a good day. Dominated for sure.
Nice. All right, let's talk about Oklahoma State. Game going off at 3:30 p.m. Big game, of course, 7-1. Oklahoma State with 2 losses, but could very well play themselves into a championship game if I'm not mistaken. But of course, got to find a way to win here. Catching 6 right now, 5.5. Excuse me, opened up at 6, now down to 5.5 a tick. Total coming in at 61.5. Oklahoma, they were primed for an upset, and it happened. Is this a bounce back spot, or is this another tough game for Oklahoma, who some people thought that, you know what, it was very fraudulent that they were undefeated heading into Kansas's game?
Yeah, this is certainly a spot that I'm looking at Oklahoma State here on the money line. The last game, it seems like, for this Bedlam rivalry, doesn't sound like these two are going to be signing a contract to play non-league games anytime soon, with Oklahoma transitioning over to the SEC. Oklahoma has absolutely dominated this rivalry. They own the all-time series 91-19 with 7 ties. So I think the only good way to go out to kind of get back at your fiercest rival is to find a way to win this ball game. And Oklahoma State, they lost 2 games early in the season to South Alabama, who was supposed to be one of the better teams in the Sun Belt. They're like a 4-4 squad, and Iowa State. Since then, they've really turned the corner. They've beaten Kansas State and Kansas, West Virginia, and Cincinnati, and they've been playing some really good football. I just think it kind of ties back into what I said about Oklahoma at the beginning of the year when they played Texas and were able to knock them off. This is your big game. This is your kind of Super Bowl. Oklahoma State has a chance to kind of go out on top in this rivalry and end Oklahoma's national title hopes. If Oklahoma wins the Big 12, I think they'll find their way into the playoff. But Oklahoma State has a chance right here to end that all at home. I think it's too good of a spot, a revenge kind of spot. And don't let the door hit you on the way out kind of moment. So give me Oklahoma State here at home. I think that they're going to pull off this upset.
I like it. All right, another game that you want to discuss? Anything else that we haven't hit on Saturday? I know I want to hit the TCU game that's coming up tomorrow with you in just a second, but anything else from Saturday? Did you want to get A&M Ole Miss?
I'm looking at Kansas State, Texas, actually. That's another big one. Kansas State, I have a couple of division parlays with Florida State, Michigan, and Kansas State to win their conferences. Kansas State was the big one at plus 500. This is a Kansas State team where I kind of tied into Oklahoma State. They've been playing awesome over their last few games. Over their last 3 games, they've outscored their opponents 130-24, and over their last 2, 82-3. So a team that's been dominating on both sides of the ball. Will Howard, their quarterback, played in big games last year, won the Big 12 championship game against a really good TCU squad. He's been there. He's played in these big moments before. And then you look at Malik Murphy, kind of struggled last week in his debut for Texas, but their defense kind of carried him throughout that game. He hasn't had that big moment. He hasn't had to play in that big game yet. And you have to go you have them at home in this one, but still, it's a Kansas State team that's not afraid of anyone. They're a really physical team. I got them earlier in the week at +6. So if you're able to get that, I think it might be down to +4. Not really sure at the exact number right now, but I'm looking at Kansas State to potentially go in there and make some chaos.
All right. Well, those are the plays. Good luck, everybody, firing away and taking Ryan Coyle's advice. And if you've done that throughout the course of the season, not on top and doing very well in the college football game. But, I just want to also include, he does it right. These lines come out, he's on them. So, of course, as we're recording here on Wednesday, these numbers have already shifted a few points one way or the other. And most likely those are the games that you're finding. So, again, for advice, anybody listening right now, the newcomers out there, get active when these lines first come out and get involved. You'll definitely increase your opportunity to come out on top. All right, let's talk some futures and get on over to the Heisman Trophy side of things. DraftKings Sportsbook, once again, where we're getting our odds from. Really intriguing to go over these numbers and discuss where they were at the beginning of the season. But Michael Penix Jr. and JJ McCarthy and Jaden Daniels is where I want to start. If you want to throw Bo Nix in there, that's fine. And Jordan Travis is your guy. I think we can stop there. I don't think Marvin Harrison's going to win it this year. He might be the best player in the game. Ohio State's undefeated. I think there might be a shot, actually. I thought there was a shot at the beginning of the year, too, as well, 25-1. But right now I'm looking at Jaden Daniels. That's where I'm circling. This is a guy that's on a tear right now. Beef, we're talking 3 total touchdowns in 7 straight games. That ties Joe Burrow's streak. And if I'm not mistaken, that was a pretty damn impressive, one of the greatest seasons ever for an offense in college football. So how is Jaden Daniels doing what he's doing? Continues against Alabama, finds a way to win this week against Bama. Like, he's going to be in the conversation, right? Because people are going to start throwing those numbers around and those the award or awards. But when the comparison and statistically speaking, what Joe Burrow did in that season, and if he tops it, didn't Joe Burrow win the Heisman?
Yep.
Your thoughts?
Yeah, so when you look at Jaden Daniels, I think some people's argument against him might be he has 2 losses. But when you look at Caleb Williams last year, he had 2 losses. When you look at Johnny Manziel, I believe he had 3 losses when he won the Heisman. So that shouldn't really be something that is necessarily held against you unless you're like a 5-6 loss type player. But leading the number 1 offense in terms of points per game and yards per game, that's something you have to certainly raise an eyebrow at. And another angle of this, if you believe that LSU is going to win this game against Alabama, take that Jaden Daniels flyer on the Heisman. I mean, at plus 400 right there, rather than whatever you would get LSU on the money line, probably at plus like 125, I'd say. Because if Jaden Daniels wins this game and just say Washington finds a way to lose to USC, Jaden Daniels, I think, will hop to the top of the Heisman list there. But if Michael Penix goes out there and does what I think he will do against this terrible USC defense, where we went over how historically bad they've been, he should be the unanimous fit. Like, he should most likely jump up to like minus 200, I would think, just because those are 2 huge games that he had, both against Oregon and then most likely against USC. But he still does have a few tough tests coming up as well with Utah and Oregon State. And then if you want to finish it off with JJ McCarthy, he still has to play Penn State and Ohio State. If Michigan wins both of those games, he's obviously going to be at the center of that. He's going to lead them to a 12-0 perfect season, regular season. He would probably be the trophy winner. So you can make a good argument for all 3 of these guys, but if Jaden Daniels finds a way to knock off Alabama in this one, he's certainly going to be right up there. And it's going to be, I think, a 3-horse race at the end of the day.
All right. Well, what about Carson Beck at 35-1 for a long shot? Anything there? Any possibility? Georgia runs a table. Of course, I know it's a regular season award, so the national championship won't count. But your thoughts on him even getting into the conversation at 35-1, worth the sprinkle?
I just don't think he's that valuable enough if that's how the voters are kind of taking it into account, just because of how good Georgia is around him. But if he is able to go out there and put up these numbers consistently still without Brock Bowers, that could be in there. But I think it's most likely going to be one of those 3 that we talked about. Penix, he's going to put up numbers no matter what. If he's able to run the table, he'll most likely win it, as we see with him being the favorite right now. McCarthy has to win 2 huge games down the stretch, and he's going to be the centerfold. And then Jaden Daniels leading the best offense in terms of yards and points in the country. If he finds a way to knock off Alabama and then he gets some help with McCarthy or Penix losing a game, he has a chance too. So I don't really think it's Beck. Beck is in that category right now. I would almost say Harrison, I mean, with the 10-1 probably has a better shot because Ohio State could run the table as well. And he is going to have to be the guy to make plays, as we saw in that Penn State Ohio State game. He is the offense for that team right now. Kyle McCord has not lived up to the billing. So it's kind of a crapshoot right now. This week is really going to be a telltale for these 3 guys.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I always frustrate myself with things like this. Like, I don't believe I might have a Marvin Harrison ticket open at 25-1. I might have taken that. Let me do this live on the damn.
I remember you said that actually, like right before we talked, like week 0. I remember you saying that you had his ticket. I forget what number you got it at though.
I think 20-1. Victor Wembanyama, I got him for MVP 90-1. I am the owner of a Jackson Dart Heisman Trophy as well. Yeah, Marvin, 20-1. Okay, so I got a Marvin Harrison 20-1 on DraftKings. I'm sitting here looking at that 10-1, and you're right. Like, if they do run the table, he's the guy. And I think everybody would be down with that history, and we don't see too many wide receivers get it. It's a quarterback award. I think it'd be pretty damn cool. So, I might take a little flyer, a little bit more on the 10-1 too as well. And this way you're invested as far as Ohio State winning out. And if they do continue to do that and beat Michigan at the end of the season, I think it's possible.
Yeah, because you can probably get them at better odds to win the than Ohio State to win the conference. Because if they win out, he's going to win he has a very good chance to win the award. If they're plus 155 right now to win the Big Ten. So if you believe that they're going to win the conference, I'd almost say take that. You're getting 10-1 instead of, 1 plus 155. I think that's a better flyer if that's what you're in the market for right now.
Yeah. Penn State 15-1, Ohio State minus plus 155, and Michigan minus 110. All right. Great stuff as always. Ryan Coyle, beef up front. Everything podcasted at foxphlgambler.com. You can find Ryan at Ryan Coyle 35 on socials. Any final thoughts, Ryan, before we get out of here?
No, it's pretty much it. It's going to be another big weekend. 5 ranked matchups, so we should have good football all day. I'll actually be at an FCS game this weekend, visiting my sister at Delaware, so I'm going to see if I can get a number on that later in the week. But as always, looking forward to a great weekend of college football and some more storylines as we head into next week's rankings.
Who's Delaware got?
The Elon Phoenix.
There you go. Game. Yeah.
Delaware's number 6 or 7 in the country, I think.
We are the home of Villanova football. They play almost every year. And they play sometimes in the playoffs. We've had some pretty good battles on the airwaves. Villanova looks pretty good as well. Delaware as well, as you just pointed out. They did beat up on Elon a little earlier this year. Yeah, it wasn't pretty. All right, for Ryan Coyle, I'm Sean Brace. Everybody, good luck in all your games. Be sure to use DraftKings Sportsbook. Brace, promo code. We'll talk to you. Peace.